Hello folks, Rob Dreemeyer here. Welcome to Broadway Barfly. Today we're making a Rob Roy.
If you're a theater fan who loves a great cocktail, click that subscribe button because Broadway Barfly is the channel for you.
In a previous video we talked about the musical Brigadoon and we made a Highlander cocktail. If you haven't already seen that video, I hope you'll check it out. Brigadoon is a wonderful classical musical and I really enjoyed the Highlander cocktail. It's a nice little drink and I had never had one before. While I was preparing for that video, my first instinct was to pair Brigadoon with a Rob Roy because the Rob Roy cocktail is made with scotch and of course Brigadoon takes place in the Highlands of Scotland. But once I learned that the Rob Roy has theatrical origins of its own, I scrapped that plan and decided to give it its own video, so here we are. Because the Rob Roy is made with scotch, I always assumed that's how it got its name, that it was named after Rob Roy, the Scottish folk hero. But it turns out that's not exactly true, and the Rob Roy cocktail is in fact named after an operetta titled Rob Roy about the Scottish folk hero. Who knew? Rob Roy was a real person. His name was Robert Roy MacGregor, and he lived in Scotland in the late 1600s and early 1700s. Most of what we know about him today, or what we think we know about him today, come from fictionalized accounts of his life from books and films. Of course, you may remember the film Rob Roy that starred Liam Neeson. The operetta Rob Roy is based on a highly sensationalized biography that was written in the early 1800s by William Scott. The composer was Reginald de Koven and the lyricist was Harry B. Smith. Now, I have to admit that before I started making this video, I had never heard of either of these two men, though they both were famous in their day, and I hadn't heard of anything that they had ever written. And now that I've done a little research on the matter, I still don't know much about them. And the reason is because operetta is truly an art form of the past. It hasn't been enjoyed by audiences en masse for many, many years. And while their work is recorded and there are published scores of their operettas, they mostly just live on dusty library shelves. That said, Rob Roy was successful in its day. It opened in New York City in 1894 at the Herald Square Theater. The theater is long gone, but it stood just across the street north of where the Macy's department store stands today. It played for 235 performances, and it was mostly praised by the critics. Their only quibble with it was that they thought it paled in comparison to the operetta Robin Hood, which the same team had written only just a couple years earlier. The Rob Roy cocktail was created by a bartender at the Waldorf Astoria to commemorate Rob Roy's opening night, and I'm also led to believe that that's probably where they held the opening night party. One of the things I've really enjoyed about making these Broadway Barfly videos is learning that so many of these classic cocktails we take for granted come from this Gilded Age and have theatrical roots. We've made videos about a number of these cocktails, the Gibson, for example, where we talk about its alleged origins at the Players Club, the Zaza, which we paired with the conversation about the musical La Cage aux Folles, and also the Pink Lady that we paired with a conversation about the musical Grease. Now, if you want to learn why we paired those cocktails with those shows, of course, you'll have to watch those videos to find out. So, let's make our Rob Roy. To make our Rob Roy, we need scotch, sweet vermouth, and bitters. I'm using Angostura bitters, and you can probably tell from these ingredients that this is very closely related to the Manhattan. The primary difference being that we're using scotch as opposed to rye. Now, by 1894, the Manhattan would already have been a popular cocktail. It's thought to have been created in the 1870s. We have a video where we make a Manhattan and we pair it with a conversation about the musical Sugar, which is based on the film Some Like It Hot. And we find a perhaps peripheral connection to Winston Churchill. Now, I'm not going to tell you what that connection is here, but if you're interested in finding out, you'll have to check out that video. So we start by adding 2 ounces of scotch to our glass. And, well, since this is the end of the bottle, I think maybe we'll add about 2.5 ounces. We'll add about 3/4 of an ounce of the sweet vermouth and a couple dashes of the bitters. We'll add some ice to our glass and give this a good stir. We will strain it into our cocktail glass and we'll garnish it with 2 cherries. Now, there are a lot of written instructions on how to make a Rob Roy, and many of them say to specifically use 2 cherries, though none say why. But I'm thinking it might have something to do with what was up under Rob Roy's kilt that made him so heroic. And there you have a Rob Roy cocktail. As always, thank you for spending your time with us here at Broadway Barfly. And I want to give a special thank you to those of you who subscribe to the channel and leave comments. I really enjoy interacting with you, and I especially enjoy becoming acquainted with those of you who are also YouTube creators. So until the next time, cheers.
If you enjoyed the video, why not give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends? Feel free to leave your comments and click that subscribe button because there's a lot more Broadway Barfly to come.